The views on this podcast belong solely to the hosts and guests. They do not represent the official positions of Teamsters Local 222 or the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. All opinions shared are protected under the National Labor Relations Act. This podcast is produced for entertainment and educational purposes only. Any reference to products, companies, or services is made for discussion or context and should not be interpreted as an endorsement or paid sponsorship. Nothing in this podcast should be taken as legal advice.
I went, really? He goes, yeah, I don't give a shit. And you know why I don't give a shit, Dom? Because under your CBA, any discipline is instantly disputed. So if you got a problem with this, go to your business agent and dispute it.
All right, welcome to Do or Die Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I really need a good introduction where we cut through the shit, talk about issues, network, do union stuff, union conversations. Got Dominique Albrecht from Geneva, longtime Teamster.
8 years.
8 years. Well, appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, I love the opportunity. I am, through Discovery, third generation Teamster.
That's cool.
My father, he is vested but never retired. My grandfather was the one that retired Teamster back in, 60s or so.
For which industry?
IFL. Yeah, he was a driver for them.
My dad was a diesel mechanic for the trains in Sacramento.
Right.
He might have been a union, maybe not.
Most likely.
Most likely was.
Yeah, most likely.
I just realized my dad might have been a union member.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he hurt his back. I'm sure a lot of those train guys have a lot of horror stories, but he's got told me some stories about homeless people being coupled, being in the wrong spot at the wrong time. And
sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I think he hurt his back, and then he was a mechanic my entire life, a damn fine mechanic too. But I just realized he was probably a union member as you were saying that.
Yeah. If he's union, you're a second generation union member.
There you go. And my son wants to be a iron worker or a steel.
Yeah, that would be union too.
He just turned 18 and he's looking for a union job.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Right on. makes me even more proud. Yeah. I would like to think I had some sort of union influence on him a little bit.
Absolutely. It's when I was growing up, I'm born and raised Utah. I go against the grain of your typical Utahn, but I always grew up knowing that union job was like your top, your top tier, what you worked for. If you're in an industry that gave you that opportunity, had the best benefits and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, I just kind of stumbled into it, honestly. I was 16 and I was a telemarketer during the day, and one of my friends was an ear-reg driver for UPS, and that's anything that can't go onto the conveyor system we call irregulars.
Oh, okay.
And so they used to pull them when they unloaded the trailer. They would put the packages on a conveyor belt to get sorted, and the irregulars used to go down a chute. That's when I still have my back hurts right now from that job. Literally 25 years later or 23 years later. And then we would pull them off of a slide onto a cart or a coffin. It looks very similar to the luggage handlers at the airport.
Right.
We've got a little tug, and we call them coffins.
Right.
And so that's what he was, a ear-reg driver, and he's like, UPS is hiring. And I showed up. I was 16 years old. They interviewed me and gave me a tour. And basically, they're like, "Do you have a car?" I'm like, "I do." They checked my pulse. I had a beating heart. Like, "Would you like to come work for us?" It was pretty much the only qualifications.
Wow.
Yeah, just young, and honestly, even back then, if you would have asked me, "Would you like to make $5 to $8 more an hour and have no benefits?" I probably would have taken it.
Right.
So I didn't, at 17, 18 years old, I didn't appreciate the benefits, or I mean, I'm 7 years away from being eligible to retire. I'm
Sure.
really appreciating the pension now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just kind of stumbled into a union job and got involved fairly quickly. And actually, Britt Miller was in my orientation class and signed me up for the union within my first week of training. And then I ended up picking off with them on the purple belts. So I started on the pink belt, and then I went pick off after just a few weeks. And then they needed a new pick off on the purple, and I was a young, strong, fit dude, and they moved me over there and was picking off with Britt Miller and kind of got introduced to the union that way.
My cousin introduced me into this. I'd never worked. Well, I can't say I never. I was a hod tender for my neighbor when I was 15, 16 years old.
What is that?
Hod tender. It's the one that mixes all the mud and gets all the supplies for stone masons, brick masons. He was both of those and had a crew, and it was the best money I ever made in my entire life, as far as being that young, but my cousin stumbled me into this. Truck driving is not abnormal to me. My grandfather on my mother's side is truck driver, grew up in that household. So growing up in a truck driver household, it's heavy on respect, and respect builds love type
For sure.
type mindset. Bunch of my cousins are truck drivers. My uncles, their dads, truck drivers. So on my father's side, my grandfather was a truck driver. So that's kind of that's kind of instilled in the Albright family.
You've been around it for a long time.
Yeah.
I didn't have the truck driving influence, but usually around the age 10 or 11 was when my dad would teach me and my brothers to start driving. So I've been back in trailers since I was about 12.
Right.
Yeah. I remember one time he had this really cool 72 Blazer K5 with the 454 big block in it. And it was off of a 72 Chevy pickup was the bed that was, I think they honestly just cut the frame and welded it and put a tongue on it.
Right.
So that was the bed was a trailer.
Yep.
But he had me backing it into our carport in Sandy. And he was on the driver's side watching me, but I screwed up the pylon and the support beam. Screwed up. It was an old trailer, so it didn't really matter, but he was just like, that's my fault. I should have been looking out. But
right.
So yeah, when I did the driving test, and my younger brother Ted Jr., my father's name was Ted. He's a feeder driver for UPS up in Hermiston. He just transferred up there a little while ago. But all of the boys have been back in trailers and driving cars even before we were teenagers.
My brother, who has nothing to do with truck driving and all, he doesn't want anything to do with it. He's the complete opposite of truck driver. He can back a trailer better than anybody I've ever seen in my entire life, which is so funny, but
just instinctual for him.
Yeah, just as much as he doesn't want anything to do with it, he worked for a small period of time on the docks at one of the companies that my dad drove for, and he was their yard dog, so he would move trailers in and out. And he came home one day and he goes, "Man, you won't believe this, but Steve can put in a trailer and you can't even slide a dime in between each side, And I'm like, what?
That was kind of almost a rite of passage at feeder drivers, because usually shifters was the bottom rung shift that you could do. So, my first 5 years was back in trailers.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure I did the math, 40 to 50 hours a week of back in trailers after, don't check me on this, but the 10,000 hours to get to proficient levels of deliberate practice to consider yourself an expert. I think most of us are there with back in, I think it was 5 years of shifting gave you your 10,000 hours.
Wow.
Well, what, 2080, right? If you're 40 hours a week, that'd be 2080. Right. That would be 5 years, right? 10,000 hours. Okay. Check my math.
Yeah. It'd be around that.
So you do belly dump?
Yeah, I'm a double belly dump driver. I started at Geneva Rock as a mixer driver. And I did that for 5 years of my career. I was even a trainer over there as well. So trained other guys to run mixers around the valley. And I had a situation, an accident that could have been really bad. I really never recouped from it, and I've always told a couple of my friends, like, I'm really good with that mixer. Like, I can pour concrete like nobody's business, but I'm a surgeon with a tractor and trailer. I just love tractor and trailer. So being that Geneva has that group or that division, I opted to head that way. I was going to come over toward UPS early in my career at Geneva Rock, but I was so close to vesting and all that kind of stuff, and my efforts there and where I stood, as far as the mixer drivers go and training, I just opted to stay at Geneva and keep working there.
Do you have moments once in a while where you're like, I'm damn fine at my job? Like
Yes.
just backing it, or just making the good decision and just doing it perfectly.
I have the days that I suck, but yes, I do have the days that,
Yeah.
I'm proficient at what I do, the fuel that I use, the lives that I saved that day without, running into anybody or them running into me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just was it last week, Wednesday or Thursday, up in Mountain Home, I had to take a trailer off of a double set and hook it to a triple because there was empties on the back of the double and the triple. So I put the load on those front two, and then I dropped that back one.
Yep.
But we backed the dolly hooked to the trailer still.
Correct.
So I pulled up and was able to back it. It's challenging, but for whatever reason that day I just pulled up, made one adjustment, and just went straight back. I was like, that was awesome. But I was looking around like, there's no one even in this yard to.
Nope.
All right. Good job, John. That was pretty cool.
Nobody to appreciate it.
And then there was a gash in the sidewall, and then another driver pulled in, and he's like, I'll wait for that because I just got here.
Right.
Let's disconnect it and you can take those two. I'm like, but I just backed it up perfect, and now I got to drop it again.
Right.
But, yeah.
No, it's rewarding what I do. I kind of envision myself as a carpenter ant moving dirt from one part of the ant farm to the other, but I'm a part of the growth of this valley, Without the material that I move, it doesn't get made into concrete. Concrete doesn't get made into a foundation. People don't get their homes, I'm part of that growth. So
yeah.
I'm all the way down at the bottom on the pile of the starting list, but nonetheless, I'm part of the growth. So
yeah,
it's rewarding in that manner.
Truckers really are pretty important in our country.
Sure. I've always been a proponent of if there's anything that you enjoy in life, thank a truck driver.
Yeah.
Because everything that involves anything to do with your lifestyle at all,
yeah,
a truck driver was involved at some point.
There was one day not too long ago where I had a bad day with other drivers giving me the one finger salute.
Sure.
Doing the best I can, was not from anything that I did necessarily, but just I can't merge, or the thing. But I came home and I was thinking about it, so I posted on my Facebook, like, if you're sick and tired of trucks being on the road, just stop supporting them. Go into the woods with your family, naked with absolutely nothing, and live there.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yep. Completely off grid.
Yeah. Stop supporting us.
Do naked and afraid.
Yep.
You don't get one item either.
Take your no clothing, because those came in on a truck too.
Yes.
You don't get your matches. You don't get your tent or your tarp. Those all came on the trucks.
Yep. You have to go out there and figure out how to make it from the trees and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Truck driving is I have kind of a bitter taste in my mouth when a lot of people support other jobs that people have chosen, and they get the recognition that they do in accidents or, timely deaths or untimely deaths. And yet nothing's done for a truck driver. You don't see a parade for a truck driver. You don't see anything.
We were heroes for like 6 weeks in 2020.
Right. And now you see more lawyers that'll fight for the everyday driver against a truck driver more than anything.
Well, that's just the money of the company they can go after, unfortunately.
It's unfortunate that the men and women that spend so much time away from home, more time away from home than they do actually at home.
Mm-hmm.
And think about that you're spending more time away from home than you're spending time at home. I grew up with a truck driver dad. I knew he was out there, Sunday night to Friday night all week, making it to where I had a roof over my head. So I didn't bitch and moan that my dad wasn't around, but
that's when you wake up and you just see it. It's all covered in white. You're like, my dad's out there somewhere.
Yep. Yeah. Cub Scouts, we're having a father-son camp out today. My dad's on the road, man. Sorry. I didn't take a substitute dad, or I didn't go.
Yeah.
My mom wasn't a single mom, but she acted like it because truck drivers are out. But yeah, it's the life we choose, and it's not the easiest one, but
for me, it's I do take quite some pride in being good at my job. But it's a means to an end.
Integrity in work seems to be getting a really thin these days. I also take pride in my work. Anything I can do to make it proficient and better, I always do.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of murmur and huff and puff in my cab under my breath. I can see the on-ramp and the car's not paying attention. And I've got a triple set and I've got room. Just, okay, let me get out of your way.
Yeah.
But yeah, and decision making too, like making the best decisions. If like when I was in Sleeper pulling a long box in some love somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, and do I have the skill set to squeeze it in there? I probably do when it's closer to the bathroom. But at the end of the parking lot, it's just wide open. That's the better decision, I don't need to. It's not a skills test every single day. It's just better decisions.
I was over the road for a little bit, and I ran flatbed, and I'd gotten rid of my load up in Seattle, and a friend of mine, she was just south of Seattle. I knew I was going to be hung up for a day or two, probably even do my reset, because my dispatch didn't have a load for me. So she had mentioned that there was a truck stop down just off the freeway, and I'm like, screw it, I'll go down there, right? I have enough time on my clock and everything. So I ran down there, and there was one spot left. I mean, if you get into a truck stop past sundown, you're screwed.
Yep.
There was one spot left, and it was so stinking narrow. And I'm just like, I know guys have tried this, but they gave up on it.
There's probably a reason it's the only spot left.
Right. So I'm like, screw it, I need a spot. So I got myself set up the best way I could, and started into that. And get out and look, make sure you're not screwing up anybody's fender and everything. I did that. I saw where I was at, and I'm like, oh, cool, I'm good. So I pulled it in and nice and straight, and got ready to hop out of the truck to go meet up with her. And this guy come running over from his tractor, and he had his iPad sitting in his hand, and he goes, I've been sitting here for a few hours. I can't get any sleep, so I'm messing with my iPad and that. And he goes, I've seen at least a half dozen trucks try to get in there, at least a half dozen trucks. And you pulled up, went right into that lickety split. He goes, that's some of the best backing. I even recorded it if you want to see it. And that was one of the pat my back, moments.
But you had someone there to tell you good job.
Right. Right. But yeah, truck driving's a different life. I like being, by myself. I don't like a boss sitting over my shoulder. I've had that, career in my life. I did a lot of graphic design early in my years, and I've sat in a cubicle and all that kind of stuff. And you can just tell me what to do and I'll go do it.
Yeah. That was a stark difference from being a package car driver where they micromanage everything.
Right.
To go into feeders, just here's your paperwork and your load. Get it there safely and back, and make sure you're on time.
Right.
Don't break the law.
Yep.
Yeah, very, very little oversight. I think it was my very first run when I had signed up for feeder driver, and they called me at midnight and said, we need you to go to Pocatello or Idaho Falls at like 2 a.m. And I wasn't used to it because I had a day job in a package delivery.
Sure.
So I'm standing in my closet at like 12:30, like, what did I just do to myself? What did I sign up for?
Yeah.
And it was miserable until I got on the road. And then I was just driving, and I was like, I've got one stop, and I've got 10 to 12 hours to do this stop. Like, no big deal. Because in package, it's all about stops. Like,
Right.
200, 240, 260 stops. You better be getting 17 to 25 of those off per hour, you know? So when I had that mentality, it's like, I've only got one stop. I've got about 10 hours to do it. So this is much better.
Right.
Yeah, I believe Teamsters were some of the safest, best trained, best compensated truckers in the industry. I guess what is a Teamster? What does being a Teamster mean to you? Let's start there.
Oh, wow. What does a Teamster mean to me? I will admit that the beginning of my Teamster career,
Put that a little up closer up to your mouth.
I was like everybody else, pretty much. I knew it came with great benefits, great pay. Do your job, don't get in trouble. If you do get in trouble, you have somebody to defend you a little bit. But I'm part of the Teamster Thunder Motorcycle Social Club, and we're the fourth chapter here in Utah, and the previous chapters are all in SoCal. California is completely opposite of right to work, right? They don't care about your driver's license; they care about your union card,
right?
Because if you don't have the union card, your license doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So we have every spring, there's a spring fling down at Local 1932, and Local 1932 is big in the IBT because for the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, because 1932 is involved in a lot of things throughout the United States and especially in Canada. Local 63 is also very well known down there. And my club brothers down there, the founder of Teamster Thunder and his brothers that also founded it and everything, they hold on the largest bike show that I've ever seen in my entire life. And our first invite down there, or it was actually the second year was when I first attended. I got down there and they literally have, like our local here is this brick brown building, circa what 70s, I think,
I believe.
Theirs is 2 or 3 stories tall. The front of it's all windows. The wheel and horse logo is the expansion of the whole building. Like you can see a ghost image of it, even on the glass going onto the brick and mortar of the building. And I eventually learned that they own all the buildings on that block as well, and converted one into a gym that the members can go to and work out and all that kind of stuff. And then another one is basically the same thing as I'm at a loss for words. Not a Medicare, but a place that if you've got a sore throat or a cold or something like that, you can go in there.
Kind of like an urgent care?
Yeah, an urgent care. Yeah. You can go in there. They'll take care of you.
Okay.
And boot you out the door with what you need, right? Lower impact on their insurances and stuff like that. And then The gym helps with, health and welfare and all
helps
that
keep
kind of stuff.
the insurance cost down as well.
Right. So when we rolled into that first spring fling, there were 3 city blocks of road closed off for this event. And if there wasn't a car in a parking spot, right, it was a bike. And if it wasn't a bike, it was a caucus tent.
Right on.
And at the cap of every one of those streets to keep traffic out and all that kind of stuff was the locals' trucks. See, down there, each local has their own truck versus up here where the joint council has the truck. Local
right.
222 doesn't have their own truck. And 1932's truck, I believe, it's stark black with gold Teamster
It's a semi
lettering.
truck, right?
Yeah, semi truck, tractor and trailer.
Mhm.
It's the trailer's a stage, so it was opened up and
That's cool.
and they had a band playing and all that kind of stuff. And a couple of the other locals, one of their trucks is a vintage truck. It's an old early 60s. I think it's a milk delivery truck, to be honest with you. And then the other one's a more updated, tractor and trailer. But when I rolled into there, wearing a vest that says Teamster Thunder on it, they're used to seeing their guys down there with riding vests with the same patches, and the camaraderie instantly from everybody on that road, not just members, everybody, the wives, the children, all their family members, everybody shakes your hand, wants to know your name, where are you from, what do you do, type deal. And you almost feel like we were greeted like kings, and it's a feeling that I've never been able to forget.
Right.
I still feel it right now just telling you
I'm
about
feeling it with you talking about it.
And once you get into that kind of a camaraderie, a love between people, they didn't know me from anything,
Right.
but I'm their brother, uh, it stuck with me. And when I came back to Utah, and then you get back into Utah's environment as far as union work goes, it's extremely frustrating. And when I went down there, and came back, this overbearing, I know I can do more. I know I can do more to
This
get.
needs to be more.
Yeah. Why can't we be like California? Why can't that camaraderie happen here? So,
Well, I think a lot of people would point to right to work versus not right to work.
yes, that's a big part of it.
But you can still build it because it's the membership, right? It was the members treating you that way. It was
Yes.
the members there.
This is
So just because we're in a right to work doesn't mean we can't have some semblance of that.
Right. So this is a member event, right? Even though the locals are help sponsoring it, those locals are in support of that. But this is a member event, and even the people that are bringing their cars there, most of them weren't Teamsters at all. They just wanted to be a part of the car culture, right? That part of it, the bike culture as well. And they knew that environment, that that they could go there, be completely safe. You know what I mean? So when I came back, I the lack of terms fire under my feet, really started to track down my my bylaws. That was my first that was my first goal, is to try to find my bylaws, because in bike culture, and in any kind of whether it's a riding group or a social club or an MC, a motorcycle club, they base their rules and regulations off of bylaws. It stems from military, it stems from Congress. It's something that's always been applied to any kind of group of people that are substantiated, right? So I asked my business agent for years for a copy of my bylaws, couldn't get them. I asked stewards for them. I'm like, how do I get my copy of my bylaws and all this kind of stuff? And finally,
What are the chances some of them walked away and said, "Do you know what a bylaw is?"
that there are some people that have asked that. What are bylaws? Well, the rules and regulations. And finally, we used to have special meetings or barn meetings once a month with our business agent, an old business agent. He used to have regular meetings like that every month that just Geneva guys would come. We'd say, hey, this is what's going on. And can you help us fix it type deal. And there was one meeting, my cousin who got me reeled into going to Geneva Rock. I was asking my business agent for a copy of my bylaws. Like, how hard is it? Do you want me to copy them off? Cause I'll run the copier. And my cousin basically flipped me his and he goes, here, now shut up, will you? That gave me my first inclination of, yeah, here's what you need, but still go sit down and shut up, And I unfortunately have never been that type. Based on the way I look and the way I act, I've never been that type to sit down and shut up. I question everything.
Yeah.
My mom and dad could tell me something that's gospel, right? That like, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. I'd still ask 2 or 3 more people.
Yeah.
If I do this, is this what's going to happen? Yeah, that's probably what's going to happen.
Right.
I've always questioned everything. And it's no disrespect or offense to anybody. It's just, that's my nature. That's the way I've always been is question everything. So, I started reading those bylaws, on my downtime at work, and I finally got to, and it's at the beginning of it, the responsibilities of the executive board. And I got reading through the paragraph of the executive board for the secretary treasurer and realized, had an epiphany via the words in our bylaws that you have to ask the principal officer, the secretary treasurer, for your copy of your bylaws, and then he must give them to you.
Oh.
So for 3 years, I was asking completely the wrong person. So nobody was obligated at all by our rules and regulations to give me, my bylaws, because I was asking the wrong person.
Right.
And after that, I asked myself, how many things are also wrong?
Right.
And so I kept reading the bylaws and kept going through the bylaws. The only thing I really skipped was anything to do with elections or anything like that. It wasn't pertinent at the time. So
you were new at Geneva, fairly new?
Yeah, about 2 or 3 years.
2 or 3 years
Yeah.
driver. Okay.
Yeah. And so that was about really only the only thing that I skipped. And then I realized, and this is one of the most important things in my opinion, is that the last thing in our bylaws, section 29, I think is what it is, or 28, is our oath that we take as soon as we start paying dues. Now, I've also learned, since then that any new member of any other local that really does things the right way, those new members are invited to the general membership meeting.
Right.
And those members stand in front of the active members and take that oath, right?
Yeah.
Now, I have taken that oath. Britt was on a little bit of a shtick for a little while that, if you haven't taken your oath, I'd be happy to take it with you. And we would collect in the back corner of the general membership meeting hall and stand in a circle, and we all took the oath as he was saying it to us, right?
That's something. It's minuscule, but has a huge impact.
Sure.
And maybe I had this idea recently, and maybe it was because of you, but when you're voted in as a shop steward or appointed as a business agent or the officers, we should read our oath, maybe even periodically, to our members and to each other. I mean, that never happened when I was a shop steward. I feel like my audio's off. But it's so small and it's real though that you are taking an oath. When you become a shop steward, you should stand up in front of the general members and read an oath
Absolutely.
and feel that pride of taking an oath of your
Sure.
duties as a shop steward and take it seriously.
And the words in that oath are basically, you're stating that you're going to do a union job for union pay, right? You're also taking an oath that you won't harm another Teamster, that you also won't get in the way of them doing their work as well, right? And I think if people took that oath seriously, a lot of our jobs would be a lot simpler,
Right.
and there would be a lot less headache as long as people stood on that,
So this kind of points to our union culture and our local in general, but here you are, a new driver at Geneva, and you're just like, there's some bylaws. Can I get some? Can anybody else help me out around here? Is that fairly common at Geneva? Because it's different, but the same at UPS. The onboarding and the orientation of there needs to be a high level of education from day one. You're a union member. Here's what it means to be. Here's what your Weingarten rights are.
Right.
Here's the article of your seniority protection. Here's your potential pay scale in your contract. Just front load it with, you're a union member. Here's your responsibilities and your rights. Here's how you handle a shop steward. Here's how to file a grievance. Maybe here's some people, I guess they appoint their areas later on, but reach out, and here's your point of contact, or a mentorship. People in new areas, when they onboard new employees,
Right.
circle them up and bring them into the union the right way.
On the mixer side, I had personal experience with that, being a trainer. The company does their orientation, and in the orientation, they're like, look, you're a Teamster. It's part of a union. You're going to know more about that in your training. So then once they give them to us in training, we would go over basically the fact that we have a CBA, a collective bargaining agreement. Everybody calls it a contract over there. It drives me nuts, but they're first, you're under a contract with the company as a Teamster, and in that contract is your pay, your vacation, and your benefits. And we go through those three or four things. That's it. If you want to know more, read more type attitude. The Geneva Teamster doesn't know how to file a grievance. They don't. My experience, my beginning part of it, I kind of had a sense of what a grievance was, to grieve something. I have an argument against something. There are a lot of old school stewards over there that this also gave me, the foreshadowing of what was to come, type deal. But I had an actual grievance on my hands. I had one that was bona fide. Like it was something that I would win, and it had a little monetary value to it, but I sat down with somebody that I trust, and he happened to be one of the stewards in my location. And he basically talked me off that grievance ledge.
Oh, wow.
and said, you don't want to paint a target on your back. If you're going to ruffle these feathers and go through this process, you probably shouldn't do it now. Right. And I'm like, well, then when do you do that?
Right.
And
long term, how does that help? You got a problem, potentially shorted on pay. Just don't worry about that. How does that help you?
right.
And the Teamsters in the future?
Right. I asked him, I said, when, and he goes, well, mark it down, date, time, all that kind of stuff, take notes. And then if they do it again, we'll keep note of it, make sure if it happens to somebody else, we'll keep note of it and that. And then about the third or fourth time we'll go after them. And I'm thinking in my brain, I'm like, wait a minute, if your kid gets in the cookie jar and grabs a couple cookies, when do you discipline your kid?
Yeah. Well, you write it down a couple of times, date and time.
Hey, I'm notating this, right? I'm like, you're letting them set precedents. You're not letting us set precedents. You're letting them set precedents. No, it doesn't work that way, right? So that was the beginning learning curve, and then shortly after that, Tony Winters introduced me to Dale, and we sat down, and this was when I ran for it's not a delegate, but it's not an assistant delegate either. It's a runner up or a backup delegate for one of the international when O'Brien was being voted in that. And so I was involved in that delegate race for that, and I did a little campaigning, and that's when I got to know Mitch Yetter and Olivia and a few other people outside of Geneva Rock, and started actually hearing, across borders, if you will, about other Teamsters and what was going on, and that campaign really opened my eyes. And we unfortunately lost the vote on that, and the current e-board at the time, they went to convention and everything for that. But that really started opening my eyes, because Dale, not only was he teaching me the process of that election process, but he was also teaching me what goes on in the international. When it comes to a president election, then in order for the Teamsters to save money, they have this delegate election in all of the locals, and all those delegates that win that vote in their locals goes to a convention, and all those delegates voted an election, because it's cheaper for the union to send everybody to that convention and vote that way. And if they have a winner for a president there, then they don't have to mail out ballots to every member internationally, right? Which costs tens of millions of dollars just in printing and postage. So that was really inspiring to me, that process was thought through, and implemented so that it didn't cost Teamsters, as much money, and the international that much money. But after that, we had that small little pause before our election in our local, and Dale hit me up with that, and he goes, "This is a big thing. It's a big deal." And I was involved in that election, 3 years ago. But the delegate election was my most important educational experience, because I finally realized the biggest problem in this local, in my opinion, and that is every Teamster in this local, minus a very short percentage of people, are uneducated as far as being a Teamster, or knowing what it is to be a Teamster.
Right.
And when I say uneducated, I'm being nice. I would say 80% of the Teamsters in this local, and we've got 4,000 and change in this local, know nothing.
Yeah, it's basically, and I've been there too, but I work a union job. I show up, punch in,
Right.
and go home. And if I'm in trouble, I have a shop steward.
Right.
That's about the extent of my knowledge.
And if your local was set up the way it was supposed to be set up, that would be enough in most cases. Don't get me wrong. That would be enough, because the original job for a steward is to do the work. Any literature that you read from the IBT on how to be a certain person in your local, they will always say the steward is the hardest job.
Yeah.
It's not paid. You're not compensated.
You're directly in the middle too.
Yep.
First line of defense.
Right. The management or the company, they know that you're the first person that they're going to hear from, right? So you're the first one on the grill, and
you're kind of on the grill when it's hottest too, right? When there's an issue,
sure,
like even direct in the moment, there's an employee has an issue with the manager and there's a shop steward.
sure,
You're in the hot zone,
right. But they're also the first person that people rely on, and they're also the first person that usually can get something done, right? So that's why I say in most cases that would be okay.
And federally protected to do so.
Yes. In most cases that would be enough, right? In bigger cases, the business agent is involved and so on and so forth. But
real quick on shop stewards, there's this. I don't know if you spoke with Adrian. I think he's out of Phoenix. He's a UPS driver. He's a shop steward over there.
I don't think so.
But I had the pleasure to speak with him recently, and this dude is a wizard shop steward, man. I was speaking with him on the phone, and he was telling me their process, their grievance process, and it is tight, and it's right, and it's robust. And he sent me some pictures, and it's literally this binder this big. And I was like, that's a lot of work you done. He's like, that's one case, dude. That's one grievance. That's all the evidence we've collected on one of them.
Right.
And he's so organized. I told him, like, your organization skills kind of gets me randy, I dig something. It's just so I really like organization and things in their place and accessibility. But I might have him on the podcast to discuss that and further. But he also said he would be willing to come down and host some training seminars.
Nice
for us.
I think that would be invaluable.
Goodyear. I'm sorry, he's from Goodyear.
Okay. It'd be invaluable because I can tell you that the team, the stewards that we have at Geneva, I conducted an experiment, and the experiment was a new steward came in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was voted in, and in knowing that person, right? I took the opportunity to when O'Brien was voted in, he ran on transparency, right? Transparency in education, and because of that, the IBT had an entire page of literature that you could download as a Teamster, and you could read it for yourself, like completely transparent. And so I downloaded what it takes to be a BA, what it takes to be a steward, what it takes to be a Teamster, all that kind of stuff, and I passed the steward manual off to this new steward, and I said, "Don't tell anybody about it. Just read it, and then go about your normal business in this local, how they're going to do whatever it is that they're going to do, and we'll touch base again."
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of looked at me, and I said, "It's no harm, no foul, or I'm not getting you in trouble or anything like that. I'm just doing it to see the difference." And I sent him that manual. He read through that manual, and we ended up meeting up at one of our Geneva meetings, and went up to him and another gentleman, and I said hi to them, and I said, "So you read your manual, right?" "Yeah, I read my manual." I said, "Now, how does it coincide with what you have been taught here at this local?" And he smiled and kind of, that that sarcastic kind of a laugh, like, "Are you joking? You're asking me that, right?" He said it's completely opposite. So when I found that out, I started really understanding where the stewards were coming from on the Geneva side, right? So completely opposite means they're not your first line of defense. They're the local's first line of defense, right? Our local's leadership is reactive, not proactive. So the steward is the first line to say, no, you don't have anything to grieve over, or you don't have a case, or you're going to paint a target on your back, or you're going to do all these other things to cause problems, right? Because that means then they have to go to work at the local. And if it does get to the business agent, which is your only non-elected person at the local, they are hired and fired, right? Then it finally goes to them. They have some weight or some clout, if you will, to do whatever it is they do behind a door that you don't see at all.
Right.
And it sounds like to me over the years that kind of stuff just gets ignored, thrown in the trash. Or simply basically you're just lied to your face. How they didn't go for it. So you lost, right?
Yeah.
I can't vouch for any of it, right? Because there is no transparency. There is no involvement in the process. There's no education in what should be going on other than the education that you get is when you do something wrong.
Right.
You know, you filed this grievance on a Wednesday. When did you hear about it? Well, I heard about it last Wednesday. Well, you only have 5 days to get a grievance in. You're past the grievance, so I'm not going to do anything with it. I can't do anything with it. It's the excuse, really, is what happens. And so as soon as I started learning that the stewards are the first line of defense for the local instead of the first line of offense, I then that led me into the next election and where we're at now. And, you know, honestly, there was a moment there with the local attacking Dale as much as they did. I didn't appeal a grievance that I had with the letter of understanding for the driver facing technology that we have at Geneva. I was supposed to grieve that to the joint council, but Spencer got that president's seat, and with Dale getting suspended and all that kind of stuff, I really genuinely feared for my job. And
do you want to explain that LOU situation at all?
So Geneva Rock has a letter of understanding with the local about driver facing technology, cameras facing us. They were testing those cameras years before you guys at UPS were even conversing about it. They ran tests. They were doing a few things through a couple drivers, and a couple of those drivers happened to be the stewards that drank the Kool-Aid, right? That's the way I term it, drink the Kool-Aid. But
there's something in the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. But you know, it was one of those stewards that you can't get nothing passed, and he'll do everything he can for the company and for the local, right? Doesn't give a damn about anybody else that he works with, you know? So they tested all that out. And after they tested all the cameras with them, out of nowhere, man, it all of a sudden, all the cameras are in all the mixers, and they've got to follow all these rules. And it's like, what are these rules? And a steward in my division, who happens to be a trustee right now on the executive board, handed me, he goes, look at this shit, right? And I looked at it and I started reading through it, and I'm like, what is this? And he goes, it's a letter of understanding for cameras facing us. And I said, who was involved? Where did this come from? How was the local not, or how was the members not allowed to vote on something this impactful on our lives? And he basically said, you know, I don't know. I wasn't involved. So I filed a grievance on it. That something like that should come to the membership. They should be warned about the disciplinary actions that comes with that.
Right. Yeah. Do you guys have protections against they can't discipline you on based on technology alone?
No, they can discipline us on they call it a critical event. They can discipline us based on the camera alone.
So that's a even bigger deal for you guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that you've got this thing watching you all day long that can lead to disciplinary action.
Right.
And then it was just, I mean, I wasn't there. I don't know what happened, but it sounded like it was a very, very small group of people involved that agreed to it.
Rumor has it that a bunch of stewards were involved. Now, if you go off of what I already told you based on the way the stewards are, right? If they're drinking the Kool-Aid, they're going to do whatever they're told to do, right?
Right.
I've got the letter of understanding right here. They have officially attached it to our CBA.
So yeah, at UPS, they can't use technology alone. Like some drivers going through the Virgin River Gorge, the speed limit and a lot of that is 55.
Right.
And it's steep hills and you never want to break the law, but you can kind of safely navigate it around 60.
Sure.
Most of the traffic's flying by at 65.
Sure.
The time is tight. Again, don't break the law, don't speed, but some drivers were navigating that about 60 to 65 and they got alerted through the Lytix. Lytix or Lytix? Do you say Lytix or Lytix?
Lytix.
Is it the same company, same
No,
brand?
we're Samsara. We're the competing company to what you guys got.
But so that picked up the speeding. They actually had to go down toward Mesquite with the radar gun and sit at the bottom of the hill. So they with the radar gun too, and then they caught a bunch of drivers speeding.
Interesting. So the list of triggering events is seatbelt non-compliance, distracted driving, mobile phone distraction.
Taking a sip of water is distracted driving, right?
Huh?
Literally taking a sip of water is distracted. Do you get that too?
It says etc. So I mean,
but I'll take a sip of water distracted.
Yeah. Harsh driving, hard stop, hard turn, following too close, accident or crash, traffic or signal violation, speeding, drowsy driving, camera obstruction, tampering or damage, and complaints arising for outside the camera recording system. All such complaints must be documented with HR. Those are all of our.
Those are all. You can be disciplined for any of those
trigger
actions?
Events. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And the process in that is documented verbal warning, second, first written warning, third, second written warning, fourth, final written warning, and or up to 3-day suspension, then 5 potential termination of employment. At the beginning of all of it, we were finding out that more people than what we thought had access to these cameras, like the mechanics and the shop personnel had access to these cameras.
To the in-cab?
Yes.
Footage?
Yes.
Holy cow.
And we found ourselves in a situation where they were looking at female drivers.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And in looking at the female drivers bouncing down the road, there were also eyewitnesses of said mechanics using their own phone to record the screen, right?
Oh, wow.
So now another documented another version, right? A pirated version of that, right? Any of the accidents or anything like that they had access to, they could see, what the driver did wrong or didn't do wrong, all that kind of stuff. I brought that up in a general membership meeting. And bringing that up in the general membership meeting was also an extremely educating moment for me in my progress of this. Is they would instantly say, "Let's talk about this afterward." Right.
So it's not in the minutes or officially documented.
Right. So for those people that want to trust these individuals, that they're saying, "Hey, this is a serious thing. Let's talk about it afterward." That buddy system. It's really not. It's to get it out of the minutes so those minutes aren't read to the next.
Such an overarching lack of transparency,
right?
And things operating not out in the open.
Right.
MOUs, LOUs.
Right.
Let's talk about this outside of a meeting. Did you guys, in fact, get audited by the IBT? I said it on another podcast, but I'll say it on this one. There's a lot of contention with members demanding transparency.
Right.
It doesn't have to be that way. Like, if I'm in that hall and we get audited on the next membership meeting, hey, we got audited. We'll let you know what the results are. Then the results come out. Here's some things. As long as you're doing everything on the up and up, here's some things. Here's the thing items that were found. Here's what we need to correct, and here's how we're going to correct them, and here's what we're working on.
But I think the benefit that you have as new leadership is how many of those things were past problems versus current problems.
But if
they are past problems, I don't want to make those mistakes again. Where's my education to where I don't make those mistakes
but if
again?
you were aware of them, I mean, you could say, well, that happened 10 years ago, but if it's still a problem and you're aware of them,
it's not an excuse.
It needs to be corrected. Yeah. But my whole point is, it doesn't have to operate this way. This happened. We just got audited.
Right.
Or the MOU. Here's my idea. Here's how I think this could benefit all of us. What do you guys think? That's your 2.8 cents per mile. This LOU. Now here's what the company's trying to do. They're going to put them in. Here's how we think we can restrict them. Here's potential disciplinary action that can happen to you guys. What do you guys think? How should we do this? To get 3, I'm just assuming, or I don't know what happened. I really don't, but it sounds like a small handful of people agreed to the company with this LOU, and it went into effect.
Correct. And the Teamsters that were involved.
Why is everything so hush hush? This is
that one I can't answer. That one's a difficult one to answer. But on the LOU, we were talking about lack of education, right? And how much people actually know and stuff like that. And what most people don't know is a grievance is an argument with the company, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have an argument with the company and you want to solve that argument, come to a conclusion. A charge is for the local. It's union member to union member.
A DFR charge.
Yes. So, the second I got that LOU and I read through it, I charged I should have charged the entire executive board, but like I said, this is the beginning of my education and everything else. And I charged Spencer Hogue, who's the principal officer and responsible for negotiating these things, for not bringing this to the affected members, right? The 475
whose name was on the LOU.
Spencer's.
Okay.
At least the affected group should have a say, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as a Teamster, and they've even touted from the pulpit that this is a democratic process, right? Where's the democratic process in this? So I charged Spencer Hogue. I went to trial with Spencer Hogue, and I even had a eyewitness that even this eyewitness also went and he got bullshitted through all of this letter of understanding stuff. And of course I didn't win, Marty Cowan defended Spencer Hogue. He did a horrible job at it, tons of projection and a lack of accountability through the whole entire thing. But Vasquez and I'm not familiar with the trustee sister's name. And then I believe it was another member, and I can't remember if it was Zach or if it was somebody else. They chaired the trial, right?
Mm.
So they were the ones that were making the decision, Vasquez up and coming.
Right.
And a trustee,
a conflict of interest there.
Yeah. So that's why I'm saying I should have charged the whole executive board. That way they recuse themselves,
Right.
But I tried my best with charging Spencer, with not representing us the right way, and because I felt that he wasn't representing us the right way, that led me to an NLRB charge, and I was shown how to do that. And
Yeah.
so I followed through on that NLRB charge, and I spoke with a lawyer from the National Labor Relations Board, and we had an extensive phone conversation about what went on and everything that went down with all of it and all that kind of stuff. And he goes, you do have a valid charge here.
Yeah, it's DFR is a duty of fair representation
Right,
charge,
right.
and I think that qualifies for sure.
It does. And after he spoke with me, he goes, I am going to speak with other people. I am going to also make phone calls. This is going to involve phone calls to your local, right? They're going to know that you're doing this. And I said, that's fine. They know that I ruffle their feathers anyway, right? So I went through that process, and it took a couple months, and I ended up having a conversation with this gentleman again. And this is one of those hard pill to swallow moments, right? And it was an educational moment in the fact that he basically told me, he goes, I personally believe that what they did to you as a union member is wrong, and we usually don't have these kind of scenarios happen in the nation, right? As far as union workers charging their own local, right? It does happen, but he goes, in this situation, and I've looked up the federal code, the NLRB gives your local leadership the permission to, in fact, do letters of understanding or memorandums of understanding without any vote or any kind of involvement with the membership. And the reason why the National Labor Relation Board gave that local that permission in that specific criteria was solely based on the fact that that local should be transparent and should
Right.
be representing their members
Right.
fairly, right? Which was another testament to the political playbook that our leaders go off of, the current leadership, and that is reactive leadership, not proactive leadership, which are two opposite spectrum
Yeah.
points of views. And at that point, because I didn't have an NLRB charge that was valid, I backed out on that. Nobody really knew about that.
Technically or legally speaking, it was not valid.
Right. And he gave me the choice. Don't get me wrong. He gave me the choice. He goes, as far as fairly representing you guys, they did not. But the argument of the letter of understanding, they have the right to do that. My whole charge was based on the letter of understanding rather than based on fair representation. So the line that I was traveling on, the LOU line versus the fair representation line, I pulled back off of that. I pulled that out. Nothing really happened with it or anything like that. But I kind of wished I would have pursued it, but when you're told from a law lawyer that
Right.
you're on the right track, it's just you're not on the right topic.
Right.
It was an educational part, and that stems all the way down to even simply grieving anything. If you aren't on topic with your grievance, and this is so important, they don't have anything to do with it. They don't have to do anything with it. If you're
The NLRB,
no, you're local.
the local.
Yes. And that's one thing that they're educated on, but they don't educate anybody else on, is how to get out of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Not how to do shit, get out of it, right? And if you don't word your grievance the right way, If you don't get it in your 5 days, you don't word your grievance the right way, you're not, putting in the right paragraph or what you're referencing in your CBA, technically they don't have to do anything with it, right?
Right.
You're off topic. This is not winnable or anything like that.
Poof magic, editing
Right.
magic, there's a contract. We were talking about before that poof magic editing trick. What were we talking about?
The LOU on my charges on the LOU, and you were going to reference that because they really don't have to do anything if they don't see any merit or
Right.
or
So
any excuse to do
it's
anything.
technically, like, the technicality of yours was that they didn't violate the letter of the law, but violated
Right.
the spirit of representation.
Right. So the NLRB's take is that your union representation is doing their due diligence, right? They're giving you fair representation. But we have learned, right, opposed to some people's opinions, that the representation here doesn't fairly represent. At least I don't think so.
Which I remember reading this, so I wanted to read it verbatim. Article 27 in our Western region, Section B. The union shall not be required to process employee grievances if, in the union's opinion, such lack merit. With respect to the processing, disposition, and or settlement of any grievance, including hearings and final decisions of committees and arbitrations, the union shall be the exclusive representative of the employees covered. So if they don't feel you've got a good grievance,
right,
you're out of luck.
Right. And that's disturbing because if they're ill-willed toward you, or they're the type of leadership that uses personal feelings to get in the way,
right,
you're not going to get any grievances or anything like that, right? That's completely biased, right?
That's also a concern with people rocking the boat or putting a target on their back with potential disciplinary and or termination stuff,
Right.
Are you confident that you're going to get? My heart tells me that they would still try to, if it came down to your job and they still didn't like you, I would still hold out a little smidgen of hope that they would still try to defend your job.
I would hope so too, but in my experiences over this last summer, there were 2 employees over at Geneva that were let go.
Mm-hmm.
And one was a new guy, right? He was like a week from his 90 days. I had ended up finding out that his last paycheck before, his firing paycheck, right? They pulled dues. And I told him, I said, look, they pulled dues. You have representation, in my opinion. And I told him that the excuse that our boss gave you is not valid, in my opinion. It doesn't say anywhere of lack of production. It does say in our CBA, though, they can pretty much fire you for anything, but they didn't even discipline him, right? They didn't even follow a discipline process. And their excuse on it was he was still in his 90 days. And if you have any kind of character, right? If you have any kind of integrity, I think his gray area, he was probably pushing some boundaries. I heard he's pushed some boundaries. Unfortunately, when we try to defend people, on their situations, I'm not a steward. I am basically rank and file. When you try to defend somebody or help them in a situation, you don't get all of the story, right?
Right. And boy, as a steward, does it suck to get all the information in a disciplinary meeting?
Right. And how much of a case can you help that individual out when you're finding it out too late,
Yeah.
So in his situation, I directly told him, I'm like, look, even though the steward was standing there while you were getting fired, that's not representation, right? He didn't pull him aside, didn't say, look, this is the situation. You need to tell me what's going on, what you have been doing. Why are they so mad at you? Right. And then have that steward come back and say, look, I think there's a big misunderstanding, a conflict of conversation here. Right. And I bet you that kid would still have his job. Right. And it would be an educational part for him, and he could still be doing what he's doing. Right. The other one, a little bit different, right? It was one of our scale personnel. Our scale people are Teamsters over at Geneva. And she in particular was one of our top scale girls, right? So, but
top seniority, like
no,
top
just
as far as performance.
Yeah, performance, knew what she was doing. No complaints, right? She's the daughter of a Teamster driver, right? A senior Teamster driver there. And which doesn't hold clout, but it's over at Geneva. There's a lot of family over there, a lot.
Feeder department as well.
I work with 2 cousins, so 3. I used to work with 4, but she had no complaints. Everybody loved her. She was fast. She was efficient, right? But on the Geneva side, we've got what we call foremans. That's what the company labels them as, foremans. They're basically in charge of our dispatch. Is what they're in charge of.
And they're Teamsters as well.
Yes, and they are in the bargaining unit. On the construction side, mixer side, they have a dispatch that is company, and it's a whole strewn of people and all that kind of stuff, because when it comes to dispatching concrete, completely different than the construction side, right? Okay. So on our side, she felt that her foreman, right, her immediate person above her, not her boss, but that foreman Teamster type person, bullied her, picked on her, and because of her health issues, she has some health issues. She took too much time off of work, which I am of the frame of mind is bullshit, right? The whole I've worked 25 years and never called in sick card. I could give 2 shits about that card.
Right.
People are human beings in this day and age. Food, life decisions.
Well, if you're able to
environments,
do that, then you should be pretty grateful you've never had to take time off for being sick. I've had two back surgeries, or 1 back surgery.
But guys use it as this badge of honor, right?
Yeah.
You're not Superman, right? And I'm not going to consider you Superman just because you have this record, right? Anyway, when she was having a struggling time on being disciplined for missing work, I informed her of the FMLA criteria, and I said, you know what, you need to file a claim, and you need to go through with that and be protected underneath that. You obviously have a condition that, it falls underneath that criteria, right? Well, you step forward and you get to the point where she gets fired, right? And I had a conversation with her, and I said, at any point in any of your disciplinary actions on attendance, did you have any union representation at all? And she goes, no, my steward was at the firing deal, but none of the other ones. And I said, you realize that the violation of your Weingarten rights is that those disciplines can be wiped from your file because they didn't do things the correct way.
Right.
And she said, really? And I said, yeah. So how is it that you can get fired if there's no disciplinary actions, right?
Why wouldn't the shop steward bring that up in her termination meeting?
The Kool-Aid.
That would be my first line of defense as her shop steward.
Right.
Your
Right.
duty is to represent them
Right.
to the best of your ability.
Sure. And
if you don't have the heart, I'm not maybe I am casting some judgment just based on the information I have, but I don't know these people, but we have similar stuff at UPS. But if you've got to have heart to be a shop steward.
Sure.
Like we were saying, like it's probably one of the most difficult positions. And if you've just checked out and I'm just here as a placeholder for a union representative while this person gets terminated, that's the fact that she wasn't documented, her Weingarten rights were violated, is basically an automatic. You can't fire her. It's a really good argument.
Sure.
Against her termination.
A very winnable argument, right?
Yeah.
A federally protected argument, right? But
that meeting should have been 3 minutes. Like, wait, where's the documentation with the shop steward? Oh, her Weingarten rights were violated.
Right.
We're done here.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
So I informed her. I'm like, look, these rights have been violated, and everything, and I said you can file a fair representation charge with the NLRB on this because your steward didn't come through with you at all, and they are a representative of this local. And I said also you can tell our business agent that your Weingarten rights was violated, and that none of those disciplines should count toward you getting fired.
So this is why you've been saying the word education,
right,
so much.
Right.
I'm starting to understand you a little bit more.
So, at a general membership meeting, I have personally worked day to day with my business agent as a mixer driver. Bob Mendez is a great electrician, and he is also a great mixer, and he was also a great steward. He got me out of quite a few disciplines based on criteria like this. You violated Dom's Weingarten rights. I wasn't there. Nobody was there. You can take that letter and throw it in the trash, right? And that manager threw it in the trash because they were called on that button, right? But now as a business agent, I had a conversation with him outside of the hall, and I had mentioned in one of the general membership meetings of people's Weingarten rights being violated over at Geneva Rock. I voiced it in one of our health and welfare concerns, right? and my own business agent that I've worked with and has also helped me in disciplinary actions came up to me and he goes, it's not their job to give union representation. And I said, Bob, but they know they're supposed to give union representation. They're not that dumb. They know they're supposed to, right? I will tell you one of my disciplinary attendance letters that I got. So Geneva likes to lump things on too. They'll go back and they'll gather other dates and lump it on, which is illegal as well. They can't do that, right? But they still do it, right? So
don't they have 10 days to discipline you under your CPA?
That time frame I'm not 100% sure. I don't think it's spelled out, but I was dispatched on a particular route that made me go into the Orem plant all day long. And my boss, Tyler, is usually in Orem more than he is in Salt Lake County. So I kind of had a feeling, right? Well, I get 2 runs in, right, going back and forth from Pelican to Orem, and hey, stop in at the office type thing, right? And this falls under that criteria of personal feelings getting into things, right? Well, in this particular one, I walked in there and I had my foreman, right? My Teamster bargaining unit individual dispatcher sitting in one chair, and then I had my boss sitting in another chair holding a letter. And I looked at Tyler right straight to his face and I said, "Is this disciplinary action? If so, we're doing representation, you know that." And he goes, "I don't give a shit, Dom." And we were sitting in a cubicle area too, where there's other business workers of Geneva. We're not in an office or a meeting.
Your privacy wasn't even being protected.
Right. So I went, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, I don't give a shit." And you know why I don't give a shit, Dom? Because under your CBA, any discipline is instantly disputed. So if you got a problem with this, go to your business agent and dispute it.
Nice.
And I said, "Perfect. Do you have my copy?" And he goes, "Yeah, your copy's right here." And so I started writing down things on the bottom of that copy. And he goes, "You know what? And I also don't give a shit if you sign this either, because it's still going to go in your file."
You guys have a right to refuse to sign, right? Obviously.
Well,
he can't force you to sign anything.
Right. Can't force me to sign anything, period. But that
was a stupid question.
But he just basically had this. He has this frame of mind of this. I really don't care about your union representation or your union involvement at all.
Yeah, it's kind of like a yeah. You're a union member. I get it. I'm
Right.
writing you up.
Right. And so I just basically let him read the letter. I said, "Great, are we done here?" And he goes, "Yeah, we're done." And I walked right back out.
Yeah.
Now, for me, right, the don't shut up and sit down type. That's my run of the mill experience. For all the other ones that do, don't want to ruffle the feathers, don't want to rock the boat, don't want to, cause problems and all that kind of stuff. They sit down and they take that kind of crap without knowing any kind of like there are federal laws that are being broken right now. And it brings me right back to, once again, how many times do you let your kid get into the cookie jar and take cookies before dinner, right? Before you say something to your kid, because I know no parent at all, right, lets their kid run out in the fucking street and doesn't discipline them, right?
Right.
You don't do it 2 or 3 times and then we're going to have a talk about it, right?
Right.
It's the same thing in this situation.
Well, in your example, you set the clear boundaries and rules
Right.
to be followed.
Right.
With there's no rules, but after you do it a couple of times, hey, maybe don't do that anymore. Here's the rules. Here's the limitations.
Right.
Here's the law. We have a CBA.
Right.
You violated it. It's time to do something about it.
Right. We have labor laws, right?
Yeah.
We have federally protected laws, right, that you don't get to scoff at.
Yeah.
We have union regulations you don't get to scoff at.
Yeah. There's the
education of the Teamster, it is not the only education that needs to be done. It's the education of business as well.
Absolutely.
And in our last general membership meeting, Bob said, "Oh, there's new change in leadership at Geneva Rock, and they're disciplining more, and they don't care." That was the most bold, outright lie that I have ever heard him state in a meeting ever. There aren't more disciplines. There aren't more people in trouble. Yes, they're getting called out on stupid things, right? But the driver doesn't even know, hey, you shouldn't be doing this because your CBA has a disciplinary action, and then your bylaws have an oath that you swore to, right? So there's this you got to step up the Teamster on an educated level and an action level, and then you also have to educate the business as
bring
well.
the company up to speed.
Yeah.
This is when I was a combo at UPS, just to kind of hammer in on how important the Weingarten rights are. There was this longtime senior full-time combo worker. she'd been in trouble multiple times, multiple terminations, and still got her job back. And at UPS, bargaining unit work is basically any progression of a package forward is our work. So supervisors are not allowed to do it, essentially. Well, this part-time supervisor was unloading a package car, and this employee, I guess, walked in there and started screaming at her, "Put these packages down. You can't be doing that." And the part-time suit mouthed off, and the employee slapped the package out of her hand and slapped the part-time supervisor across the face.
Okay.
Don't recommend that. That's not the proper course of action.
Right.
But,
right.
So,
Assault isn't the right way to go about it.
So they were in a termination meeting, and the shop steward, his name was Barry Height. I think he retired. Fantastic guy. Last time I talked to him, he had cancer, so I'm not sure if he's still with us, but he's a fantastic guy. But he was a shop steward, and every time he spoke in the meeting, was asking questions. The head of security and the manager said, "You be quiet." So after a couple of times, he just said, "Okay," and he sat there and took notes. And he also noted, "Not allowed to speak." So they took this to panel and got Barry's notes and said, management didn't even allow the shop steward to speak. They violated her Weingarten rights. We're throwing this case out. She's not terminated. Just simply based on the fact that she didn't have fair representation from our union because he was told to shut up. He was there, but they told him, "You be quiet, don't talk." So that's the importance of her Weingarten rights.
Sure.
He was physically there, but not allowed to represent her. She got her job back. She physically assaulted a part-time soup. I believe she's retired now, but yeah, got her job back based on that.
Just as much as they use one or two, textbook criteria, like you had stated in your CBA, they can not do anything with a grievance based on merit, right?
Mm-hmm.
They use criteria to not do things. You can use the criteria to do things
to your benefit,
and the confusion on it is because I'm using it or John is using it or who else is using it doesn't mean that you're bad or that you're the enemy of the state, right? It's the same thing on both sides. They get to use criteria. We get to use criteria.
Almost as if there's some sort of agreement.
Right. Right.
That we all collectively bargained upon.
Yes. Yes. So, that's the atmosphere over at Geneva Rock. It's difficult. It's very difficult.
I just can't. It's hard for me to imagine how I get one side of it. Just go in, do your work, and go home. You don't want to be written up. But how, as a whole, and for future generations and your job as a whole, and every contract negotiation, how does just being quiet and keeping the target off your back benefit any of that long-term or big picture?
Right.
I mean, if you're constantly being violated and you're being written up without representation,
right.
I get it in the short term, when punch in to punch out, keep your head down low. I mean,
you just brought a memory up in my head. The Teamster, the steward that I first was going to do a grievance through that convinced me not to paint a target on my back was also the reason why I joined. He is also the reason why I joined the union, because I had a general understanding that I didn't have to join the union to get any of my benefits. I spoke with him and I said, "Look, I'm sitting on this application about a month now, right?" And he goes, "Why?" And I said, "Because I don't see what the benefit is. I don't see what the power that comes with being a dues paying member." And he said, he said this to me, and this is the only reason that it convinced me to become a dues paying member is, he goes, there was a lot of Teamsters before you that did a lot of work to get you the benefits that you have right now. minus the complaints that everybody has about benefits and pay and time and all this kind of crap. Needless to say, the people before you, they put in the time and the effort, and they got you what you have now.
And they fought the really hard battles.
Right. And if you don't pay your dues and be a member, then you're crapping on their effort, right?
And this can slowly start slipping away.
Right.
Also, right?
Right. So, based on the integrity of who I am, right, I started paying dues and I became a rank and file member. But I also have the same frame of mind, right? Just because those people, had a voice, and just because those people had an effort, right? And just because those people stepped forward and blazed trails for where I'm at now, where we are at right now, it doesn't mean that everybody gets to shut up and sit down and not blaze their own trails. This is ongoing,
keep
right?
Blazing.
Yeah, you keep blazing. You still got to do the work to keep it. You can't just say, "Okay, here we are," and
we've
then
arrived.
Yeah, we've arrived.
Thanks for all your hard work. Looks like we're good.
It doesn't work that way.
More of a torch, passing the. We'll take it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you for all your hard work, and we respect the Teamsters before us, and we'll take it from here.
There's one lady that comes in that is a steward over at UPS. Her father was part of the e-board a long time ago and passed away, and I can't remember his name to save my life. I'm horrible with names, but the executive board has kind of, emulated his oomph, right? Oh man, what a pickle, right? And he always had something to say, and it's hard to deal with sometimes. But if you don't have those people, then you don't get movement, right? If that guy was alive now and he was our age and he was raising hell like he did back when he was raising hell, you think they'd be picking on him like they pick on Dale, kicking him out of the union, threatening his membership and his lifestyle and all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. Like, how can you in one breath say, it's amazing to have the offspring of this person that was very outspoken and all this kind of,
and look back fondly at how difficult he was,
right?
But
on the next page, on the flip of your hand, you're going to pinpoint your own members and try to kick your own members out for being loud, being boisterous, disruptive.
Yeah.
You know
what else is disruptive is a strike. Our strongest tool we have is a union.
Correct.
That's pretty disruptive.
Correct.
Better not be disruptive. What if the company told us sit down and shut up? No, we're Teamsters. We're disruptive.
That's a whole nother Geneva topic there. Strikes. Ugh.
Well, I like let's end it there.
Yeah.
Blazing trails and fighting the good fight. And I know sounds like you get some hell for it, but
I do.
I know you've got a strong moral compass and the fight in you, and doing it for the right reasons.
I tell everybody, all you all have to look at me. I don't care what I look like, but I have to look at myself in the mirror in the morning. If I can't look at myself in the mirror, then I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to look in your own eyes and be okay with who you are to walk out the door. I'm okay with who I am. I can confidently look at myself in the mirror. I'm okay. One, because I don't want my dad to come back and kick my ass, because he would, but he instilled those values in me, whether them being religious based or just what it is to be a man. I still live by that principle, right? You just don't be a dick, right? Be kind. Think of other people first, and try to do better in the world. Leave it a little bit better than you leave it when you go to sleep, at least try to.
And despite the targets you put on your back, you still will get in there and help out members because it's unjust.
Absolutely. Yeah. I it's inevitable, one of my friends said, "You're one of those underdog guys."
Yeah.
And I said, "What do you mean by underdog, guys?" He goes, "You're always the one that will root for the underdog." And I said, "Absolutely. I'll always root for the small guy. I'll always root for the underdog. And if you pick on somebody less fortunate or incapable than you, damn straight I'm going to be the one to defend it, you know?"
Yeah. As Teamsters, I think we're underdogs up against these billion-dollar companies,
Yeah.
and we need some dogs on our side.
Without any of us, how do they make their money?
Absolutely.
And without any of us willing to keep getting up every morning at odd hours and staying away from our family for so long, who else are they going to sell that product to?
Yeah.
Right.
That's one thing that I resent a lot with it's a little bit better now, but the assumption from our dispatch used to be you're just trying to get out of work. You're just lazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically every single UPS feeder driver I know wants to go in and do the best job possible, as safe as possible, make as much money as possible without stealing any time, fair day's pay for a fair day's work, and go home to their family.
Yep.
Like when we used to drop trailers, it's snowing. Were you sure it's only there's only about a half inch of snow on my map, like on the radar. It's like that's 40 miles I got to drive in this illegally. I can't do that. Were you sure it's just a small cell above you? Which I'll address that on when we have some more time. But every single feeder driver I can think of that I've ever met wants to just fair day's pay for a fair day's work, do the best job possible. We'll pull triples, Sunny, let's do our job and go home, and we'll do it right. So Blazing Trails with Dominic. Appreciate you, man.
You bet.
Thanks for coming on.
Glad to be here.